Resident Evil, Larper.
It's been 6 years since June 12th, 2020. The Rosales incident. A day I'll never forget. The day the cop in me died. Paz City was destroyed due to bioweapons created by the pharmaceutical company, Umbrella. I was one of the only ones lucky enough to make it out alive. We thought the terror was over after Dr. Cubberley was killed by his own weapons, but Umbrella still remains a shadow organization. Since then, I've been tasked by the government to hunt down any remaining rogue Umbrella labs located throughout the country. Someone tipped us off to a lab located deep in the Arizona desert, the place I'm heading to now. What happened 6 years ago will never happen again. I'll make sure of it.
Whoa, 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 whoa! Hey, you know what? Nice Chris Redfield cosplay, buddy. Yeah, that looks good on ya.
You know about the Umbrella Lab, motherfucker?
What the hell is Umbrella?
The R virus, motherfucker. Where are you keeping it?
Man, you're kind of fucking killing the vibe, bro.
We know there's a lab here. Where is it?
Yeah, my YouTube lab. You ever hear of Nekopara, buddy? Well, if you haven't, wait till you watch my video, The Beauty of Nekopara. Millions of views, trust me. Jesus fucking Christ, the tip-off was wrong. That doesn't mean you can't have some fun. Got some soup out there, you can pull up a chair and watch me play. No, you sick fuck. Why would I do that? All right, man, your loss. Up until very recently, I think I would have called myself a Resident Evil Larper. My friend would play Wesker or Nemesis on Dead by Daylight, and I'd say, hey, they're pretty cool, with no idea who they really were. When my ex asked me to name my car so it could date her car or some shit, I named it Leon after Mr. Scott Kennedy himself, when in fact I had never really played RE4. In fact, I'd only played RE5 when I was a little legit gamer, and I think I played RE1 for the DS, but it was too hard for a 7-year-old ass to beat. The closest I ever got to RE is the fact that I basically live on a Resident Evil property.
Everyone say hi, Evil Shack, that's on my property.
It was only when I started watching Markiplier play Requiem that I decided my Larper ass should play the games. But I'm such a Larper that I started with the remakes because the tank controls scared me. But even though the tank controls scared me, I felt like I had to prove myself. I had to become a true Resident Evil fan. And the only way to do that was to play all the Resident Evil games, even if I didn't like them. And then I realized, wait, what the fuck am I on about?
I was never an RE LARPer. I just enjoyed a franchise by proxy and never got around to playing it.
But to that point, what even is the definition of a LARPer? Is it just someone who doesn't enjoy the game the way I enjoy it? Nonetheless, I was sucked in by this LARPer shit and felt like I needed to prove my Resident Evil fandom. That until I played every single mainline game, I couldn't call myself a true fan. So that's exactly what I did. I went and I played every mainline game and even went back and played the OGs of 2, 3, and 4. But why? Who was I proving my fandom to? People on Twitter who I'll never see in my life? Are you guys proud of me? Can I join the ranks of insufferable bastards? The ironic part of it is no, I can't join the ranks of insufferable bastards because one, I'm a YouTuber, you can't get more insufferable than that.
But also, I didn't even play all the mainline games.
My ass isn't gonna go hunt down Code Veronica. I'll wait for the remake. That, or I'll wait for it to be ported on Steam. And, well, I really tried to get through RE6. I mean, I really tried, but I can't. That game is just too ass. Stopping playing RE6 was my rebellion against this dumbass anti-LARP culture. Because guess what? I don't need to explore every single fucking inch of a video game franchise to be considered a fan. When a game becomes homework, why the hell should you keep playing it? Which is what I want to talk about right now at youtube.com/classicash2442.
So if you're into that and you hate anti-LARP culture, dab me up, brother!
When I started my journey through Resident Evil, I did 100% skip RE1, but I did come back to it after getting through all the mainline games. I will admit sometimes I can be a bit of a baby and my Gen Z brain needs to be coddled before it tackles something it deems scary, such as tank controls, otherwise known as a game mechanic that is slightly unconventional. But even in this early phase where I wouldn't really say I was in the fandom yet, so I wasn't on Twitter getting barraged with how the remakes are actually ass,
I still ran into this LARPer discourse. A close friend who had beaten RE1 and RE7 called me a fake fan because I was skipping an admittedly very important part of the series.
This was all in good faith because he did genuinely want me to try RE1, but the observation did hit me hard. Was I being a fake fan and approaching this the wrong way? I had real doubts, but besides that, it did raise an interesting question. When does one cross over into fandom? How much of said media must you consume before the pearly gates open and you're allowed to post on the subreddit? According to my friend, and probably not a small crowd of RE fans, I was being a poser by skipping to the parts I wanted to play. For me, I wanted to enjoy the conventional third-person shooter that I'm used to and that I now think RE has absolutely perfected.
This stuck with me immensely, and I knew if I wanted to get the full RE experience, I would need to cross over into tank control grounds eventually.
But I really wanted to get my feet wet first, really get enchanted by the RE franchise before I jumped into RE1. So I began my journey and I breezed through RE2 through 4 in a span of 3 days. Sometimes I really do chud it out, huh? To chud or not to chud aside, I really enjoyed my time. I didn't go the way the conventional fandom would want me to go, and I think I was better off for it. I entered the fandom when I really got into the Resident Evil 2 remake, and when I beat 4 Remake, it became one of my all-time favorite games. But even with the enjoyment I found in the RE remakes, the LARP allegations stayed in my brain. And since I had already skipped 1 game, I couldn't find it in me to skip 2. Now, I played a lot of Resident Evil 5 as a child, but I never really got far because of fucking course I didn't. I really just played the opening on repeat until I got bored and moved over to like fucking the Saints Row. There was this kind of like low-key undertone of wishing I could skip ahead to 7, but also I was excited to revisit some nostalgic media from when I was a kid.
But I was in for a very rude awakening.
Now, in all fairness to RE5, I was coming off some pretty modern day shooters where my Gen Z brain was all cozy and warm, doing things like backpedaling and shooting at the same time, and in RE4 engaging in parry slots. If you've played RE5, you know you cannot aim and backpedal at the same time, and there's no parry slop to engage with. It doesn't help that RE4R is basically like a masterpiece in almost every single way, and RE5 is not a masterpiece in every single way. I also played RE5 100% solo, which is a mistake and definitely not how the game is meant to be played, which honestly just added extra suffering on my part. That could have been completely avoided. I have friends that would play this with me. Where RE2 to 4 took me 3 days to get through, RE5 took me 4 days to get through. Not because it was like super hard or I was actually spending those 4 days playing RE5, but because I was bored out of my fucking mind. I truly don't know what it was. Maybe it was the military piss filter, or the fact I was going from a 2023 game to a 2009 game, or maybe the fact there was no merchant to ask me what I was buying. But truly, whatever it was, I was damn near falling asleep at this keyboard right here.
Any other sane person probably would have just dropped the game, it obviously not being for them, but in my mind, I had to prove I wasn't a LARPer. I had to prove my fandom.
So even though some of the bosses straight up don't work on PC, or that Sheva is just a useless piece of shit, or the fact the only thing I enjoy about RE5 is Wesker and he only gets 7 minutes of screen time, I pushed on and completed this game. Of course, right afterwards going to the group Discord server and complaining about it.
Anti-LARPer culture had made me play a game, honestly, I didn't really want to play.
I wasn't having fun, yet I pushed on, breaking Reggie's golden rule, man. So I said fuck it. I no longer cared about proving how much of a true resident head I was, and I skipped right on to 7. I did have a slight excuse to go right to 7 though. I wanted to play 6 with a friend and not make the same mistake I made with 5. But even doing that, I was still bored out of my fucking mind playing 6. Anyway, I moved on and I played 7 through 9, beating them in again just 3 days, really just chudding out at the PC.
So here's the big question. During my playtime of 2 through 5 and then 7 through 9, when did I prove myself as a true RE fan?
I still hadn't played any of the tank control games and I had completely skipped 6, but in my mind I was a huge evil head at this point. The gameplay, the ambience, to a lesser extent the story all really hooked me into this universe and convinced me to go beyond remake territory. The fact that I had skipped RE1 still really ate away at me and I still felt like I had to prove my fandom. So wanting to prove myself as a true Resident Evil fan, I went back and I played 1 even though the tank controls really scared me. I started right after I beat Requiem, but there were some growing pains to be sure and I took a week break off. But after said week break, I jumped right back into Resident Evil. Now this is where something odd happened. Despite me not wanting to wrangle with tank controls and completely avoiding them, they really grew on me. And when they grew on me, so did the OG Resident Evil. I began to appreciate basically everything about it. How much planning you had to do before you went out on expeditions, how much planning you had to do just to take out normal zombies, how Spencer's mansion is this ambient masterpiece, and how Barry became one of my favorite characters because he fixed the door and it made my life so much easier. I genuinely had a really good time and I beat it in a single day. But that doesn't mean I didn't have complaints, especially about the tank controls. Like the Tyrant fight sucked because of them. You know how hard it is to keep tabs on this motherfucker when the camera is also your enemy? Also, whoever thinks it's anti-art to skip the fucking door loading screen should be tarred and feathered. All in all, the anti-LARPer culture made me play something that maybe I wouldn't have played beforehand. This continued for the OGs of 2 through 4. About a week after I finished the RE1 remake, the original RE1, 2, and 3 came out on Steam, and I picked up 2 and 3. Again, the main goal being to prove myself as a Resident Evil fan, not only playing the remakes, but also most of the originals.
And you know what? OG 2 and 3 are pretty fucking good.
I would say OG 3 is much better than Remake 3, but that's not really a gameplay thing. That's more Capcom cutting half of what made RE3 cool in the remake. The thing I really appreciated about that original trilogy was how the games built off of each other. You can really feel the improvement that the original devs had, from walking the halls of Spencer Mansion to walking the streets of Raccoon City. Also, even though RE1 was remade to look as sexy as it looks now, RE2 and 3 felt better control-wise. They were both more responsive, easier to navigate. Never did I curse the fights in 2 and 3 like I did in 1. Also, Nemesis in RE3 had me screaming like a baby bitch like no other pursuer in any Resident Evil game ever had before. Also, the music, man, oh my god, if there is one way that the original games absolutely mogged the remakes, it is the music. It is so fucking baller. RE2 especially, it just has banger after banger after banger that you don't really see in the remake. Finally, I need to thank whoever let you skip the dumbass door loading screens in the 2 and 3 port. Oh my god, I love you and I could kiss you on your cute little mouth.
And I really wouldn't have discovered any of this if my friend in the fandom hadn't really pushed me to try these obtuse, beautiful games.
Which overall is good. I'm glad I was challenged to eat the ribeye at a weird angle compared to just leaving it alone and eating the traditional third-person ribeye. But good thing or not, personally, you still can't deny the gatekeeping that anti-LARPer culture on the internet brings. Especially when it comes to a series that has as much history as Resident Evil does.
Resident Evil definitely has some of the most gatekeeping potential.
The reason being, there are like 800 different eras of Resident Evil, all with their unique fanboys who are willing to die for their favorite type of gameplay. You have the OG fans who swear to God that Resident Evil peaked at tank controls. And the fact that there are even remakes is a affront to God, and if you like those remakes, you're going straight to hell, motherfucker. Then you have the stop and pop fans of 4 and 5 who think the gameplay peaked there, and if you take one fucking Leon campy line from them, they will rip you limb from limb. Then you have the RE6 fans who, I don't really know if they exist, but if you do exist, man, keep doing the good work, you crazy bastards. Someone needs to defend that game. This brings us to modern day Resident Evil. This encompasses 7 through 9 in the remakes. People like me who, when they see unconventional gameplay, run towards their mommy. You can look just about anywhere, but mostly on X the Everything app because, of course, you'll just find the most miserable motherfuckers to walk the planet. Usually it was them screaming to the rooftops about how the remakes butchered anything good or original about the OGs. And listen, as a guy who has played all the OGs except for 0 and OG1, they kinda fucking over-exaggerate. I gotta say, they have a point when it comes to 3 remake. In the remake of that game, we do lose a lot of what made that game original and special, and all that should have been in the remake. There's really no excuse. But by no means is it like a stinky piece of shit that needs to be avoided at all costs. It's just lackluster. And by no means is that lackluster effort found in the 2 remake or the 4 remake. Those are genuinely really good games. And they're also not pieces of media meant to stamp out the original. You could go buy the originals on Steam right now.
But what's my point? Well, my point is I will always be the Resident Evil LARPer to someone because I prefer the remakes over the originals.
And I'll never be allowed to grace their fandom halls. This really hit me on my second attempt to get through 6. There's an online community that says you should really try 6 and that it's actually really good. Please just try it. So after I beat 4 OG, I was like, okay, I'll give it another try. Maybe this time it will be different. And even though this should be obvious to anyone who enjoys this as like a hobby, if you're not having fun with a video game, stop playing. And I swear to God, RE6 felt like the most tedious assignment I had ever been given, and I'm in my 9th semester of college. Somehow this franchise had become homework. Don't get me wrong, I was proving myself when I played 2 OG through 4 OG, but I really enjoyed those games. 6, on the other hand, brother, I was falling asleep again. So I dropped the game and didn't finish it, nor do I have any desire to complete it at all. This super odd spell had been casted on me when I started this franchise. My friend egged me on in good faith, and I'm glad he did, as it led me to try and really enjoy RE1, but this had come way too far. Now imagine a world where I do start with RE1, not really immersed into the world yet, and maybe even turned off by the obtuse controls, feeling like I needed to be RE1 before I could get to anything else. Now, might you say that's someone being filtered out by a really juicy steak? Yeah, sure, but you gotta admit, that steak is pretty obtuse, man. Even with my friend and the community pushing me, I still dropped it for a bit before I came back and gave it the old college try. I think a big reason I was willing to stick with it so long was because I was so deep into the Resident Evil universe that I was able to go beyond my Gen Z brain-rotted comfort zone. My main point is maybe we should meet new fans halfway and introduce them to the franchise by holding their hands and telling them, yes, the tank controls are super obtuse, but if you really stick with it, you'll get an experience that you're not going to get in any other video game, and not run them off the field because it took them a little long to adjust or they started with a remake. There shouldn't be a dumbass LARPer tribunal where you need to prove yourself as a real fan. So what's the point of this video? Well, I played Resident Evil and I wanted to talk about it. Here's my tier list. If you disagree, you're the Resident Evil LARPer.
But more so, I really just want to talk about how much I hate this anti-LARP behavior. No one should really need to prove their fandom. We don't need to carry around these fucking ID cards that you only get after a specific amount of playtime.
Hell, this is gonna be controversial, but I'm gonna say it anyway. I think someone who's watched the series but never played it can still be considered a fan. You know how many FNAF fans or Undertale fans didn't play any of the games but watched Jacksepticeye or Markiplier play them? Probably fucking millions, and they're still all fucking fans in my book. That was literally gonna be me before I was like, nah, I should play this on my own. If you enjoy a game and genuinely interact with it, you're a fan. There's no magic line that needs to be crossed.
Hopefully you get around to playing it. I don't think a Let's Play is a supplement to actually playing the game. And you should play the original games, do not get it twisted, but hey, at the very least, you're engaging with it in some way, man. It is annoying when someone who doesn't know know anything about the game tries to talk the talk and walk the walk. I really do get that. And expelling them from the community is probably a better thing than them trying to assimilate just because something is cool at that moment. Posers, in fact, do suck. Do not get it twisted. I am not on their side at all. But when you make the fandom line something other than just genuinely engaging with the media and enjoying it, you've become just as annoying as the poser. Thanks for watching. I hope it was at least sort of funny, and I'm gonna promise you guys at least maybe one video for the rest of 2026. I love you.
My grandfather said this mummy is worth millions.